Hey, what's up, everyone? It's time to go over the recap here. I thought I had more coffee. I don't. It's been a long morning. Lucas is. Oh, meow, meow. You want your tummy rubs? It's recap time, everybody, for The Two Towers. We finished it a couple weeks ago. Last week, we normally have every Monday an episode, but last Monday I did a live stream for Rings of Power, so we didn't do a Monday's Middle Earth episode, but this week we are. But we're doing a recap on The Two Towers, which I finished up a couple weeks ago on my Kindle, which is here. Um, Chris has her versions of the books back up there. If I can get my finger to point, those right there are her versions in Spanish. It's even got a cool little map in there and everything. I bought those for her for her birthday a couple years ago. She has not finished reading them yet, so she's a little behind the times, but it is what it is. By the way, this chair is creaky. I apologize. Luke stole mine. I had to grab Chris's chair. Recently, he comes in the room and cries if I'm sitting in this chair. He wants because it's where Daddy sits, so he wants to sit where Daddy sits. Anyway, let's do a recap of the Two Towers and get ready for Return of the King, which is going to be next week. So, kind of like Empire Strikes Back, I feel like The Two Towers is the best novel of the trilogy. Um, the first novel sets up the characters, sets up the stakes. The second novel ramps everything up and gets everybody into a whole bunch of trouble. And then the third is the final act, and that's when we're wrapping everything up, and we have tragedies and we have other things happening, but ultimately, good does win out in this story. I'm not spoiling anything by saying that because you've either read the books before or you've watched Peter Jackson's films. I highly doubt that there's anybody watching these YouTube episodes that haven't either read the books or seen the series or seen the films. So, spoiler alert: the good guys win. Um, but let's just analyze the Two Towers for a little bit because I think there's a lot that went on in this book. It was the and it's been a long time since I've done the read through again. I haven't read these books since 2020, 2021. It's been, like I said, 20 years. Um, I do not remember ever being this emotional reading things. I cried twice during the reading of the Two Towers. Both scenes were related to Smeagol and Gollum and the interactions that he has with Frodo and Sam. And it's just, I don't think some of this may just have to deal with the fact that I'm 20 years older and I've matured a lot emotionally since I first read these things, and I've grown as an adult. I'm a completely different person at 42 years of age than I was when I last read these around 20, 21 years of age, because I read these right before the films came out. So there's a lot of growth that has happened as a human being. And also, I started my writing career in 2008, and officially became a writer and have been making a living with words since then. So there's also a lot of maturity that has come along with being a writer and understanding a little bit more of the scope of storytelling and what makes good writing and bad writing. So I'd like to think that that probably contributes a little bit as well. Um, so yeah, there's definitely a combination of factors, but I think what makes it really, for me, The Two Towers, the better book is because this is the book where we get a lot of I feel like we get more lore in this book, and also just the stakes are higher, especially in the first half where we're dealing with the entire situation in Rohan and the corruption of Saruman and dealing with this wizard, and also everything that's going on with the country of Rohan and the Rohirrim, and what Saruman has done to basically it's genocide. I mean, they're literally trying to completely wipe out the Rohirrim and allow Saruman to just take over this huge chunk of land on the other side of Gondor, so that he's controlling this side of Gondor, and then you have, you know, it probably is reversed for you guys because this would be Mordor and this would be Saruman, and coming together to crush Gondor. And ultimately that not happening because of the power of our heroes. It's also the first time we really get to see Aragorn in his element and him and who he is as a leader of men. And also the fact that he, along with the dwarves and elves, the difference between them and like normal men, because when they make that run as they're chasing down after Merry and Pippin. And when they finally meet with the Rohirrim, and they make the statement of, this is how far we've come in the last X amount of hours. um, Éomer and the men are like freaked out, like, you know, truly it's a testament to your bloodlines that you were able to do that, because no normal person could have managed to run that far on foot. Like, it's just this moment of seeing the difference between what the Númenórean bloodline brings, and then also the elves and men. There's also some really cool just lore snippets that we don't get in the first book. As an example, and I'm going off of memory here because I don't have my notes in front of me, because I just did these notes on a week by week basis. Uh, when Legolas, there's a moment when Legolas describes the fact that elves simultaneously exist there and here at the same time, and so they don't really need to sleep, and it's just this constant, sort of being in two places at once, that gives us a very succinct, if brief, glimpse into the otherworldly nature of the elves. We also get this dialogue of Gimli with Galadriel, very powerful, and Celeborn, and Celeborn lamenting the war between, and the bad blood between the two. I also think this is a very powerful. Uh, um, anyway, sorry, no, that was Fellowship of the Ring, not this book. I'm getting ahead of myself. But we also get I can't talk about Gimli and Legolas. The dialogue that they have, we really get the expansion of their friendships during the Helm's Deep encounter, and there's a little bit of comedy, and I think this is where there's a whole section here where I talked about Tolkien's experience in the war really came through in those chapters, because it really was all about warfare and strategy and the life of the soldiers and what they were going through, and using humor to deal with the grotesque and difficult things that they were facing. Um, just great, great storytelling here, all the way leading up to and the end when they're riding for Minas Tirith, and the separation of everybody. Plenty of lore drops. I love the reaction that Theoden has when they're leaving Helm's Deep and he sees the Ents, and he's just like overwhelmed with emotion, because these are these stories of his childhood, right? There's also a super powerful scene when they're facing Saruman, and Saruman is trying to just use the last vestiges of his power through his voice. And Theoden is very silent, like he's struggling with it. But when he finally does speak, he just gives this speech that's like basically, "Screw you, Saruman. I don't care what you say. I want to hang you from a gibbet, and only then will I be satisfied, when your head is dangling and the crows are eating you and all this other stuff." And it was just like, damn, like it's super powerful stuff here. So the storytelling and the writing is enhanced in this book, I feel, but especially when we get into the second half of the Two Towers and we move into the Frodo, Sam, Gollum sequences. Those are hugely emotional, and I had two times when I cried because of the way that we are given a glimpse into who Smeagol used to be, and just what that ring has done to him and corrupted him. I think the most powerful for me is that moment when Sam is sitting there and he has Frodo's head in his lap, and they're finally resting for the first time in forever. And it says that Smeagol comes back, and the way the light hits, it says it appears if this is this fragile, hunched over old hobbit looking figure who's like reaching out towards them as if to touch them, and he wants to feel that love. He wants to be a part of that tender moment, because he's been withered and corrupted and tainted for so long, and he sees the tenderness between these two friends, and he's reaching out to sort of see if he can't be a part of that, because he's been starved for attention for so long. And then Sam turns around and the ring takes back of a hold of him, and the glint comes back in his eye, and it's that moment is past. Some super powerful stuff with the downfall of Smeagol, and just trying the way the text really makes you feel sorry for him, but also the lore drops when they meet Faramir, and those chapters dealing with Faramir and the quality of men that still exist who want to do the right thing, and the struggle that Faramir goes through about whether or not to let these guys go off into the wilderness or take the ring back to Gondor, and ultimately proving that he, like Aragorn, is capable of resisting the ring. Powerful, powerful stuff. And then just getting to the end of this where everything appears very, very bleak. The scenes with Shelob are just devastating. The flickering of the lights is really getting on my nerves. I don't know what happened recently, but anyway, well, that's another story for another time. Um, Powerful stuff with Shelob. It's the first time in a long time I've read something in a book that made me feel "Ugh," gave me the heebie-jeebies. But the descriptions of Shelob and the fight scene with Sam is just so intense and so gross and so grotesque. I feel like they did a great job in the films of visually pulling that off. So for me, I just think that this is the best book out of the series as I remember it. Now I'm about to get into reading The Return of the King, which means I'm about to start reading that, and it may change my mind as I get through and deeper into The Return of the King. But yeah, a great second entry, and like I said, it's a lot like The Empire Strikes Back in that it just feels like the better one out of the trilogy for me. But I still have one more book to read, and we'll see how I feel at the end of that. So stick around. Next week, I will be back for another episode. If you've gotten to the end, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, do all the things, support in any way you can, super thanks, memberships, all those good things. I'll see everybody next week. Happy reading.